And we're going to go down through this, folks, because, when I read this article, and I've felt like this for quite some time now, I have to be honest. When I say quite some time, I mean years. I have pretty much lost all faith in women. I have to just bare my soul, folks. Straight from the heart of the Bandido. I have just lost pretty much all faith in women. This idea, oh, you go and find the love of your life. You just find the love of your life, you get married, you settle down. Everybody loves those words. Are you gonna, Mr. Bandido, I get asked this from time to time. Mr. Bandido, are you going to settle down? Are you going to willingly shackle yourself? Basically, is what people are asking me. Are you going to literally put the handcuffs on and tie yourself to the bed and you can't move anymore? Settle down. That's the term we use. Are you going to settle down, Mr. Bandido? No, I am not going to settle down. That would be admitting defeat. Settle down. Settle down with who? Haley? Settle down with Haley. I mean, who are we settling down with? Some gal like Haley, who some night, she'll just wake up some night and say, but Jesus, the Bandido raped me. She could just wake up some night and all of a sudden the Bandido splashed all over the newspapers in court. Is that what we want to define as settling down? Settle down with who? I mean, I know modern day culture loves this idea of you just find someone till death do us apart. Isn't that one of the fucking things they read out in the religious ceremony when you put the ring on the finger, till death do us apart? Settle down. Why would I want to settle down with a chick? Why would I want to do that? Why, folks, please, let's be honest. Why would I want to settle down with a chick? Look, I have no problem dating some gal, hanging out with some gal, being in a relationship with some gal, settling down with her. I mean, let's define our terms. If you mean settle down as in you're going to move in with your gal and live with her, what, for the rest of your existence? Why would I do that? Why? Just because it's the socially acceptable thing to do? Folks, let me tell you something before we get into this. I mean, if I'm going to, which is increasingly unlikely, this is why the show is called, Why I've Basically Lost All Faith in Women. In the extremely unlikely circumstances, and the reason why this is extremely unlikely that I'm going to settle down with some chick, it's going to become very clear by the end of this show. In the extremely unlikely circumstances that I, quote, settle down with some chick, let me tell you what settling down will not mean for me. It will not mean fucking buying a house and living with her. So hold on. You're telling me. So let me give you an example. Let me just tell you something. My best friend in this entire world is my brother. I have known him all my life. I'm in my early 30s. My brother's in his early 30s. I have known him my whole life. He is my best friend. He is one of the only people on this planet who I truly trust. And he's one of the very few people who I willingly want to spend time with. Unquestionably, my best friend. And if we're talking about a life's companion, he is my life's companion. I wouldn't want to share this life with anyone other than my brother. So you're now going to tell me, after 30 odd years of living with my brother interacting with my brother, enjoying my life, traveling around with my brother, talking with my brother, doing all these interesting things with my brother. You're telling me that after living that life, a life that I super enjoy, I couldn't think of another way to live life other than with my brother. You're now going to tell me that some chick who I've known for 6 months, or 12 months, or 18 months, fucking 24 months, I don't give a shit. If it's 6 to 24 months, whatever. 5 years, I don't care. You're telling me some chick is going to walk in here and then after 1 to 5 years, I'm going to ditch my brother and settle down with this person who I barely know in comparison to my brother. Is that what you're telling me? Settle down. Why the fuck would I want to do that? That sounds like a nightmare. Especially whenever I consider how much overlap in personality, in interests, in how compatible I am with my brother. I'm going to introduce this variable, this chick. Folks, if I'm going to date some chick, let me tell you what settling down looks like for me. Settling down looks like continuing to live with my brother and not living with the gal. Now, I know you might say, oh, but you have to live with her. Oh yeah, may I add as well, I ain't getting married either. Fuck that. So for those of you who are thinking, oh, but you know, when you get married, Mr. Bandido, no marriage for me. Not a hope in hell. I'm not tying myself to the legal system for some fucking chick to fleece me, potentially in the future. And to sponge off me. Absolutely not. Marriage, whether you like it or not, is fucking legally binding. It's tied to the legal system. Why would I willingly shackle myself with the legal system when I don't have to? So that's the first thing. I ain't getting married. Screw that. And the second thing is, I ain't living with the chick. She can live somewhere else. I'm happy to meet up with her on my schedule when it suits me. Whenever I've finished discussing the extremely important things in life with my brother, if I've got a wee bit of spare time, then I'll go chat with the chick. But only then. Settle down. I ain't living with no chick. You know, I'll take a cat. I'll live with a cat. You know, there are less strings attached with a fucking cat. The cat, you know what you get. You know, this is the beauty of a cat. You know what you get. Women, you don't know what you get. And what do I mean by that? Well, we're going to learn all about this with old Haley Watkins here, in terms of what you get with a woman in the modern age. You know, at least a cat, folks. It turns up at your door in the morning and it wants fed. And if you give it some food and you give it a little pat on the head and ignite its little purring engine, and then you see when it comes around again, as long as you keep feeding the cat, it's a nice, simple dynamic, isn't it, folks? Easy peasy. There's no legal system involved. The cat is an independent being as long as you feed it. And as long as you stick to a consistent feeding routine, in other words, so long as you condition your cat to know when it's going to be fed, it's going to be a marvelously harmonious relationship. No law involved, no elevated expectations, it's just nice and simple. The cat isn't going to accuse me of something and have my ass in court. The cat isn't going to consult its lawyer and want to figure out how it can nick half my estate. No, cats are simple. Simple minds. The cat just wants me to feed it. And as long as I hold up my end of the bargain, the cat will hold up its. Great stuff. I'll live with a cat, before I live with a chick. So that's what I mean by settling down. For those of you who say, Mr. Bandido, will you never settle down? Answer, absolutely not. I very much intend to live out the rest of my days, first and foremost, channeling the vast majority of my time, energy, and attention into my brother. Because he is, and always has been, always will be, the most important person in my existence. He's my comrade. When the shit hits the fan, he's there. He doesn't get daunted. He doesn't get intimidated. He doesn't shy away from the facts of reality. He doesn't shy away from a discussion that needs to be had. And he's also got good insight as well. He's very useful in terms of giving extremely insightful and critically important feedback. That's how I intend to live the vast majority of my life. If some chick wants a piece of the Bandido, well, she's going to have to understand the ground rules first and foremost. Number 1, no marriage. Number 2, no children. I ain't having Again, I have to be honest, folks. You see, children, life gets fucking messy with kids. I know some people are going to say, but Jesus, you're overlooking one of the great pleasures of life. Maybe I am. But you know what? I've seen enough kids down the town. And I couldn't be fucking arsed with that. They are blobs of jelly. And they persist in a blob of jelly state for far too long. Too much effort. I have to divert too much time, energy, attention, and other resources towards this fucking blob of jelly that can do nothing for me. And again, when you have a kid, whether you like it or not, you're again more or less getting the legal system involved, because you have to have the kid with some chick. And of course, there's a whole fucking rigmarole with that. So there's no marriage, there's no kids, and there is definitely no cohabitation or cohabiting with one another. Fuck that. We're not having that. I'm going to be living with my brother, not with a chick. And by the end of this show, folks, it's probably going to be clear why I feel the way I feel, why it is that I have pretty much lost faith in women. You know, if there was the remote chance, because it gets more and more remote, folks, to be quite honest with you. With every passing year, I think to myself, could I be arsed with a long-term relationship? Holy fuck. Getting into a relationship with some gal that I barely know. I don't know her motivations. You know, I barely know her. Is it worth it? Or should I just be a casual mater? How about I just go around like Leonardo DiCaprio? That sounds more up my street. You know, like Captain Jack Sparrow? You know, fuck this whole idea of commitment. I couldn't be arsed with commitment to a woman. I don't mind being committed to my brother. That's different. Very different. He has proven himself to me, and I've proven myself to him over decades. We've had each other's backs for decades. Very different set of circumstances there. Very different dynamic. Some chick? Goodness gracious me. It is so unlikely that this is going to happen. Long-term relationships, settling down. And I've already explained what settling down sounds like for me. Not living with her. No marriage. No children. So there you go. Any of you out there that are thinking, well, I wonder would the Bandido fancy a bit of it? There's your answer. You're going to have to figure out if you can stomach all of those things. I think I'm a casual mater. That's what I think. I think that's the way I'm heading. Because, you know, this whole idea of settling down, we're going to learn from Haley here. You know, I think Haley Watkins is just the perfect example as to why I've lost my trust in women when it comes to romantic relationships. Why bother with the headache? You know, in theory, folks, it's a good idea. You know, in theory, In the land of theory, yes, you meet up with a nice gal. You know, she qualifies physically. You find her physically attractive. Her motivation is pure. There's a lot of overlap in your interests and your personality. You know, it sounds great. In theory. But you know, when you live in the real world, one has to accept the reality of what is before us. The probabilities of me finding some gal with whom I'm going to settle down, the probabilities are low, folks. And you know what? Fine. I don't need to settle down. I think this is a complete artificial construct of modern day culture. This idea of settling down for life. Hold on. Did your ancestors, are you telling me that your ancestors found one gal and that was it? They committed to her for the next fucking 40 or 50 years. Is that what you're telling me? Are you telling me that it is consistent with human natural history for people to live together for 50 years? Is that what you're telling me? No, that sounds to me like some fucking construct of the modern environment. That sounds like religion sticking its oar in, trying to convince people how to live their lives. That's what it sounds like to me. Oh, you should get married. You should get married and be with this person. It doesn't matter, folks. You know, this is the beauty. I'm going off on a tangent here. I can't help myself. This is the beauty of marriage. You know, the beauty of marriage. It's just, you see, if you're a chick, marriage is wonderful. Oh, holy fuck. It's the pinnacle of a chick's existence. Because basically, when you get married, all bets are now off. You see that chick who has been desperately trying to stay in shape? Because she knows that until she gets the ring on your finger, she knows that she has to stay in shape. She has to continue to be sexually attractive to you, otherwise you'll dump her. So, you know, you've got this chick who's desperately trying to stay in shape, desperately trying to stay physically attractive. And then see, once you, dipshit, put the wedding ring on her finger, she then balloons and becomes an obese mess because, you know, till death do us part. You know all that? This is the beauty of marriage. The beauty of marriage is that when the chick manages to get you with a ring on your finger, you as the chick can basically become a slob. You have permission to become a slob. Because now that the ring's on the finger and the law is now involved in this relationship, which I think is a terrible idea. I think it's a terrible idea to get the law involved in a romantic relationship. Terrible idea. I'll repeat that again. Now that the law is involved and she's got the ring on your finger, you are trapped. Remember I said at the start of the show? Would I willingly want to put the handcuffs on and fucking tie myself to the bed? That's you. Once you get married, you've now got the law involved. And you see, if you want to get out of this thing, now you have to get a fucking divorce. And because you tied the knot and got the law involved, your woman has a whole bunch of rights that she wouldn't otherwise have had you kept marriage and the fucking law out of it. You see, this is the beautiful thing about being a casual mater like the Bandido. You see, when you just go around and you take life at your own pace, you know, you meet up with who you want to meet up with. There's no wedding, no rings on fingers. You see, if I decide that the chick in question doesn't qualify anymore, I can just say, I'm done. And I want to find someone else who qualifies more so than you. And she hasn't a leg to stand on. She can weep, she can cry, she can scream, she can try to convince me that I'm wrong. And I will smile. Because I haven't got involved with the law. And also, I haven't had a child with her. Because if I have a child with her, the law gets involved again. And I am now obligated to give this gal and this ball of fudge that she's produced, I'm now obligated to fucking partly rear this thing. I have to funnel resources. Do I want to do that? Fuck no. I want to use all of my resources for me and my brother. We are a team. So I've no problem committing to anything that involves my brother. But a chick? No thank you. I don't want the law getting involved via marriage or via having a kid. And then this whole idea of living with your woman, screw that. I'll take the cat, thank you very much. Because again, why would I want some chick in my living space? I mean, because let's face it, folks, in my own unique circumstances, for the chick to live with me, that's going to mean me having to divert time, energy, and attention away from my brother. That's going to mean me perhaps having to move away from my brother. And then when the shit hits the fan, I get to turn to this chick that I've known for a few years. That's my insurance policy. Some gal that I still barely don't know. Well, that just sounds marvellous, doesn't it? You know, I toss aside my brother, with whom I've had, a 30-year plus relationship with. Yeah, I'll toss him to the side. And yeah, live with this gal who barely knows me and I barely know her. And then when we realise that this concept of settling down and living with a chick for 40 or 50 years is totally inconsistent with your natural history as a human. Folks, if you were back in the ancestral environment, you'd be lucky if your relationship lasted 5 years. You'd be lucky if a relationship lasted that long. Fucking 10 years, 20 years? Christ almighty. If you think that humans in their ancestral history put a fucking ring on their finger and got some dude in a dog collar to say, till death do us part, and that was just it for the next 50 years. If that's what you think, all right. You stay with that notion. I'm going to stay with my understanding. I think it is very inconsistent with our natural history. I actually think it's very inconsistent with human biology as a whole. This idea that you just commit yourself to one woman. Oh yeah, if you're a chick, it sounds great. Oh yeah. If you're the chick, this is a wonderful idea. But you see, if you're a dude like me, I couldn't think of anything fucking worse. And I think there are a whole bunch of men in Western culture who feel exactly like me, but they haven't the bollocks to actually just accept what it is that they want to do. They succumb to the social pressure. It's frowned upon. Oh, it would be frowned upon to be a bit of a casual mater, wouldn't it? When we hear that terminology, oh, so you don't settle down, oh, well, yeah, and you get a few funny looks, don't you? Because you buck the trend. But then you need to ask yourself, who set the trend? Who decided that it was the norm to marry one gal and then, regardless of how whack out of shape she gets after the wedding, which is what normally happens, folks, I cannot tell you how many times when I'm walking through town, how many times I see some dude who's in relatively good shape and his woman is morbidly obese. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, he cannot be happy looking at this. But then, of course, it all makes sense because who's running in behind them? That's right, you've got the little blobs of jelly that we call children. He is clearly unhappy with how his woman looks. He's clearly thinking, at least, of a relationship with some other gal who's hotter than his current woman. But because he's married and because he has kids, he is tied in with the law now. And then once we throw in a third thing, which is the social disapproval that comes with dumping your woman, basically. You know, you hear it all the time. Oh, did you hear such and such? Left his wife? Oh, that's a reprehensible person right there. That's disgusting behaviour. Yeah, that's what the chicks say. Secretly, all the men are looking and going, I wish I had the balls to do that. I wish I had the balls to leave my woman. But I can't, because I'm legally tied in through marriage. We've got the kids, so it'll get messy with the kids. And, you know, then there's all the social disapproval, all the frowning looks that are going to come from my social circles. She's morbidly obese, but I'll just stay with her anyway. I'll just stay with her. Path of least resistance. And you've got a whole bunch of men. I see them down the town. They look fucking depressed. They'll never say it, but they look depressed. Because their woman has got the ring on the finger. She's legally protected. She's churned out a couple of grime blobs of jelly. She's got so much buffer. And then she's got the weight of the social disapproval that normally comes when a man leaves a woman. She knows she's cushy. She knows that she's in a cushy set of circumstances. And that it's unlikely that her man's going to leave. Great if you're a chick. You have permission to become a fat mess when you get married and when you churn out a few children. Well, you see, the Bandido is not having any of that. Absolutely not. No way, Jose. I'm going to continue to be an opportunistic casual mater. I ain't getting involved in any big long-term relationship. Screw that. And you know, even in general, you see, even getting into a relationship with any woman in the modern age, this is why I'm calling the show, why I've basically lost all faith in women. I'm even questioning, should I even get into relationships with women anymore at all? Is it even worth it? When you think of all of the potential costs of living in the modern age, you know, accusations and all of this shit, and how the law is very heavily weighted in favour of women. Women can accuse men of a whole bunch of shit. They can remain anonymous. They can throw their accusations from the shadows, and the man has to go in front of the cameras, get his face fucking plastered all over the place. He doesn't have the opportunity to be anonymous until a verdict is reached. Is it worth it even? That's what I'm thinking. I'm sort of looking and thinking, you know what? Do I need even any sort of a relationship with a chick? And I know that's a sad state of affairs, folks. It really is. It's one of these things about the modern environment. We talk about this all the time. The modern environment is great. I love being a modern day human. I wouldn't want to go back and live in the Stone Age, in an ancestral tribe. Absolutely not. I love the modern environment. It's great. I wouldn't want to change that. But that doesn't mean there aren't some costs of living in the modern environment. Costs that didn't exist back in the Stone Age or the ancestral environment. And you know, one of the costs is women. Women and the way their minds have been warped. Now, I am generalizing. There are some good women out there, but there are also some very warped female minds out there. They have been totally brainwashed by social media. Totally brainwashed. And their pattern recognition is fully active. And what do I mean by that? Well, they know that there's a few quid to be made. There's a bit of fame to be basically generated. If they make a few accusations here and there, they get their moment in the limelight. You get fucked over. They basically get to be anonymous. They get the law to be heavily weighted in their favour. I mean, the incentive structure is all over the place, folks. You've got women whose minds are totally warped by social media and what they are watching on social media. And then you've got these bizarre incentive structures. It's actually, women are almost incentivized to make accusations against men. They get away with it. There's no real cost to a woman making a false accusation. May as well give it a go. You may as well give it a go. You never know. I might get a handout. Because if there's not a big cost, why not? So I'm even looking at all of this, and then it just becomes a mess. Settle down. Settle down with who? Fuck me. Anyway,